there's this old school, and I think it's a very Christian concept, by the way, that you love your family, and then you love your neighbor, and then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizens in your own country, and then after that, you can focus and prioritize the rest of the world. A lot of the far left has completely inverted that. They seem to hate the citizens of their own country and care more about people outside their own borders. That is no way to run a society. And I think the profound difference that Donald Trump brings to the leadership of this country is the simple concept, America first.
That's what to me is so crazy about some of the hyper left-wing reaction to, the idea that like somehow I want to force every man, woman, and child to go to my church is ridiculous. I just don't want to do that. I've never had any interest in doing that. But where you see actual real religious tyranny is increasingly in Western societies where you've had a large influx of immigrants who don't necessarily assimilate into Western values.
It's really hilarious watching people like J.D. Vance talk about Christian values when he licks the boots of a man, when he's second in command to a person who knows nothing of Christian values.
Well, Donald Trump came up studying televangelists, actually. His spiritual advisor, Paula White, describes in her book how he has studied televangelists for years, has studied their skills, studied how they preach, how they teach, and I think in many ways he tries to mimic them in his speech. So there's a kinship in the way that he speaks. This is the realm of televangelism. We're talking about this non-denominational, charismatic space that's pretty amorphous, very open to new experiences, new forms of Christianity, and they have gathered around Trump. They've seen him as a vehicle for their own power, as someone who is backstopping their movement, someone who will defend Christianity, even though they recognize he's not a good Christian.
If Jesus were an Iowa voter, who do you think Jesus would vote for?
No, Trump, for sure.
Yeah, definitely Trump.
If Jesus was an Iowa voter, who do you think he would choose?
Man, I really think he would choose Trump because I think Trump's for Christianity, and he shows that, the abortion. And, another thing is just looking at what's happening around the world, with the transgenders and all this, what they're pushing on kids is terrible. They're talking about changing their genders and injecting them with hormones when they change their gender at a very young age. And, I can't even, I'm 18 years old. I can't legally drink a beer. And these 12-year-olds can change their gender. I think that's pretty messed up. And
so in 3 years, you're going to have a beer, right, for the first time?
For the first time, yeah.
That's what I was after.
Iowa, so, yeah.
All right, good. Well, enjoy it.
Personally, I think I would vote for Trump. I think Jesus, I know God. He wants people to do what they believe in, and I always believe that's what Trump wants people for, too.
If Jesus were a voter in Iowa, who do you think he'd vote for in this next election?
I'm praying that Jesus would vote for Trump because, more recently, I don't think Trump was a really strong believer when he entered the race in 2016 or 15, whenever. I really see his life is changing, and now when he speaks, he points people in the direction of God, and that, hey, he's not the answer, but Jesus is the answer.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you, and as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away. and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we were all once strangers in this land. May God grant us the strength and courage to honor the dignity of every human being, to speak the truth to one another in love, and walk humbly with each other and our God for the good of all people in this nation and the world. Amen.
Mr. President, what did you think of the sermon? What did you think of the sermon? What did you think of the
What did you think of the sermon?
What did you think? Did you like it? Did you find it exciting? Not too exciting, was it? I didn't think it was a good service, no. Thank you very much.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
They can do much better.
Donald Trump, the guy who has 4 or 5 kids with 3 different women, cheated on all of his wives, continues to do so. The man who paid Stormy Daniels, that whole cover-up thing. Is this a very Christian-like approach? Would Jesus want to take away people's Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security? Would Jesus raise prices? Who would Jesus deny health care to? Those types of things. On top of the fact, right, that it wasn't so long ago that J.D. Vance was calling Donald Trump Hitler and saying that anybody who votes for him is an idiot. But now that he has the opportunity to be second in command, he's like, oh, well, let's get back to talking about Jesus. Again, Donald Trump, 2 Corinthians. So I don't want to say what my favorite Bible verse is because I love all of them equally. Give me a break. And, Christian nationalism in a lot of ways is just the worship of the state. That's what it is. Obviously we have protections in place to where we have a separation of church and state. Now we've gotten to a point to where in Oklahoma, the public school system is shilling and selling Trump Bibles to people, buying those Trump Bibles within the school system, a Bible that has the Pledge of Allegiance and all of those things in it, and Donald Trump's name and brand on it, because, that's very Christian-like. It's, reminds you of Roman society, to where, what was best for the state is what's best for the gods. What's best for the gods is what's best for the state. No different here. That's why when Donald Trump talks about we're going to take Greenland, oh, well, we might as well go ahead and take Canada too. Make it the 51st state. Let's take Panama. These Christian nationalists, these evangelicals are like, yes, we got to spread the good word. We got to spread the USA. We got to make sure that we active all over the place so that God's good grace and Jesus's plan can come true, because without America, there is no Jesus.